I started in 1971 as a creeper at Kahawatte. It was a CTP company. It was one of the most prestigious out of all the other companies in Sri Lanka because it was a sterling company. We were paid very well. I think they were one of the best paymasters at that time. And I was there were 4 assistant managers on that property at Kahawatte. It's a large property. At the senior SD, we had Mr. Shantiral Gunasekara, we had Mr. Alex Fernando, the other SD, and there was Rohan Pereira and Mr. Mervin Pereira, who passed away recently. It was great times for the reason I had come from a very private sector oriented Unilever to the plantation sector. Things were very, very different, extremely different. And I am glad that I had the courage of my conviction at that young age to be able to see the advantages of Unilever kind of management. The difference was, though we were highly people-centric in the plantations, they were not respected so much. Whereas in Unilever, even the lowliest worker was respected, and the hierarchy was, we called the chairman either by his first name or boss or chief or captain, never sir. But on the plantations, except the tea bush, you served everybody else. That was on the one side. The other was the very strong command and control structure the plantations had. Do as you are told. You are not told why, you just do it. I'll come to that later. Whereas in Unilever, it was more participatory management, even at that time in 1970, and they had a lot of motivational stuff. Reward and recognition was very high. I worked in a department called the pan room, where you had a lot of oil and you could have slipped and fallen on that soap any time. Merely for not slipping and falling for a month, you had a lunch and the director sat with you, and then you were given some crockery or cutlery or some small thing. So incentivizing was a great part of that management, which I couldn't see at all on the plantations. And I am so happy that I introduced it in a small way by giving workers for the best plucker sari or some ceramic plates or whatever from the cheapest CWE at that time. And I really didn't realize how powerful this was. Until 45 years later, I go back to the property that I learnt work about 2 months ago, and I recognize some of those youngsters who are there now. They are now old and whatever, and they said, "Sir, do you remember you gave us plates?" I said, "Yes." So 3 plates are broken, sir, but still I have 1 plate to remember. 45 years. And the union leader said, "Sir, you remember there was this family living in this particular area?" I said, "Yes, I remember them." They said, "So they went off to India some years ago. And do you know one of their cherished possessions that they took back?" I said, "Normally they take gold." And he said, "No, sir. You gave fork and spoons to the workers as a prize for the best plucker. And this is in that set that they took back." I said, "Aha." And I remember this. I don't really remember the event, but I remember buying this. It was called Lanka Loha at that time. Absolutely poor quality. You know, that fork, you could have killed someone. It was so basic and whatever. And I really don't know. Workers would never have used forks and spoons at that time. It was, they were. But I don't know why I thought it fit to give them something that was well up the value chain or the social ladder, implement that he used. And they took this back, and 45 years later someone tells me this. Of course, when I joined, they were called coolies. And coolies meant that, okay, they came from India and they were shoved into line rooms and they just lived and died there. Years later, the word laborer came in, where they just labored. They didn't know why they were doing certain things, they just did it. Then they were dignified a little more and they were called workers. And probably by the time I left, I had introduced to whatever the plantations, the terminology calling associate, which means from myself, the CEO, right down to the workforce, we were all associates in the company. We had a common vision for the company. We had common goals for the company. We had common responsibilities as associates. When I look back, of course, I was a people's man all the time, and my success in the plantation industry of turning around 2 or 3 RPCs from being dead loss companies to number 1 or number 2 has been all people powered. And in this transition from coolie to associate or coolie to worker, I am still wondering whether there was in fact felt change by the management. Workers continue to do their little thing. Management, whether they actually did things connecting the people, making them felt wanted, I am not altogether sure. I feel in the last 3, 4, 5 years, it has got worse. Managers and assistant managers and plantation companies, of course, went through a bad patch in the last 3 years due to economic reasons and prices being low. And worker engagement suffered. And with this disengagement of workers from the real day-to-day life, I now see workers have moved. Plantation companies have been static, doing what they always did day after day. Not very much change, not very much innovations. The worker, whom we thought was a totally internal controllable factor of production. He lived in the lines, he came to work, he went back to work. No more. With the end of the war, they move anywhere and everywhere. Every single plantation that I visit for both these companies are short of labor to do essential work. A lot of essential agronomic practices that are getting neglected because there are not enough workers to handle. Where are these workers? They are supposed to be living on the plantations, but they are working in Colombo and elsewhere. It has now gone a full circle. Take this year, April, few months ago, we had the Sinhala New Year, Tamil New Year. Normally they stop work for 2 days, 3 days. This time there are estates which stop for 9, 10, 11, 12 days. Reason? The workers, the residents who are now working in Colombo found that their construction industry came to a standstill during that time. Their bosses went to the villages and they were coming back only after their ceremonies and all that on Saturday. Therefore, these guys went back to the plantations. They don't want to hang around in Colombo and stretched their New Year celebrations or their temple ceremonies. April is the highest cropping month for the whole year. We get between 10 and 12% of a year's crop in 1 month. And when you don't harvest that, you get into a downward spiral of overgrown crop, bad leaf coming into the factory, poor quality leaf, poor end product, bad prices, high volumes, and you make substantial losses during that month. So we see that the plantation worker is being dictated to not by the management, to the whims and fancies of the management, but to someone who is supposed to be a resident but a non-worker, but he is now working somewhere else. I am told there are instances where the union leader comes and speaks to the manager and the manager says, look, can we adjust these dates such that you work, you stop, just give me a minute. He goes out of the office, on the mobile he contacts somebody in Colombo in some construction firm or in some restaurant doing this kotoroti stuff. And that fellow says, no, it can't be done. But we'll be there for 8 days and all these things have to be done in 8 days. That is one factor. The other factor is the influence that this community, which may be just 5%, 10% of the resident working population which is out of, who come back, they come back with cash. So there's money, and there is this young man who may be the husband, maybe a son, maybe a brother who has come home. They have cash. Now, the tendency is for the rest of the family who are workers to also stay back. But the husband has come after so long, they have cash, they hire a three-wheeler, they go to a temple, they go to town, they buy their stuff. So for 8 days it's carnival, till this Santa Claus goes back. So this factor of production is internally controllable is now becoming internal but uncontrollable. He lives on the property, or he's supposed to be living on the property. His wife is now, they earn something like 3,000 rupees a day when they do this type of work. And there is enough cash coming in, and they tell their wives, no need for you to work so much. You look after the child, take the child to school and back. So the property, I have put it down in some of my reports, the plantation is now becoming the permanent abode of workers. It is not dependent on the plantations. Having said that, they might use the creche, they might use the medical facilities, they might use the ravines in the, on the estate to cut their fodder for their cows, but they are not contributing or adding value to production.